Too many times in my career as a self-employed and entrepreneur, I've been given this comment or this suggestion that, "Hi, Mwenesi, come over, do this job. It doesn't pay anything, but it's going to be great exposure for your business. Why don't you try this opportunity? Because, as much as there's no money, the connections and the network that you're going to get are going to be really great for your career." I'm all for that, but let's be serious. If you don't have customers who are paying you, you have no business being in business. My name is Mwenesi, and this is Get Yours. So I've been self-employed now for several years, going on to a decade almost. And in this time, I've known that there have been opportunities that have been offered to me where I know for sure there's no money that is going to come out of this, but this is part of my objective. This is part of my strategy to allow myself access to the next level or a door to be opened or whatever it is. However, I am the one who decides for myself what opportunities I'm looking for that are not fiscally related or have money attached to them. And it's not for someone else to decide for me whether or not this opportunity is good for me, for my money, for my exposure, for my clientele, or whatever it is. Too many times I've seen people who have gone into business suffer from this situation where they're perpetually in a let me do it for my exposure mode, or let me do it for my profile building mode, or let me do it for my networking and accessing mode. And you forget that the whole reason why you are self-employed is so that you can employ yourself. You're not going to employ yourself by networks. You're not going to employ yourself by your brand. You're not going to employ yourself by opportunities. You will employ yourself by paying yourself a salary, by paying yourself some kind of monetary reward for your efforts. The difference between being self-employed and being employed by others is that instead of another organization paying you, you pay yourself. But how do you expect to pay yourself if you do not have people who are paying you? If you do not have customers, if you do not have clients, if you do not have people who you can invoice or do something in exchange for some fiscal return, then you have no business calling yourself self-employed. At that point, you're just busy for the sake of being busy. And most really, smart people will try and convince and take advantage of self-employed people, especially creatives, and give them this adage that, you know what, do this job, it'll give you exposure and access to a network. Listen, until you have figured out your core hustle, you have no business doing things for exposure and for branding or whatever it is, all right? Figure out what your core is and who your core customers are, because like I said in a previous video, which is where you have to distinguish between your audience and your client. Your audience are the people who will cheer you on, and that's fine. Get your cheer squad, get your people who believe in what you're doing, people who will give you the access, give you the opportunity, give you the network and grow your brand. That's all fine and dandy. However, your immediate responsibility to yourself is to figure out very quickly from the beginning, who are my customers? Who sees value in what it is that I am bringing to the table, all right? And can I get many of those at once? Because there will be customers who will pay you your bread and butter, your day-to-day, the people who will be paying you money for, they call it keeping the lights on money, right? People who will give you that money that will allow you to pay bills. And then there will be customers who will allow you to take that next step, because maybe you might land on a job. Let's say, for example, you're a photographer, right? And you make your daily bread and butter by taking pictures of portrait pictures or stills or whatever it is that you do, and you might make a bit of money here and there, maybe a couple of thousand shillings per photo and so on. But then you might get that one function. Maybe it might be a wedding, it might be an event that will pay you several tens of thousands of shillings that now allow you to make that step up. Okay? Being able to have different variations of customers is much more important than having, opportunities upon opportunities that are not paying you, and then very few customers that are actually paying you. So focus more on having, your bread and butter customers, your event changing customers, people who can change your circumstances from, just paying your bills to now you can actually invest in some new equipment. And then you have that groundbreaking, that life-changing deal or contract that will get you, to a point where now you can start to actually make investments outside of paying your bills. All right, so there are three categories. Category one of customer are the ones who just keep the lights on. You don't ever look down on these customers. Don't ever think that, it's not worth having these customers. They'll pay you the small bits, but keep doing that, because that's where your portfolio is built. I would rather you build your portfolio from small people who are paying small money, and you're able to create a portfolio, or what you call a profile of work that you can show people. And then have that second category of customers that will allow you to charge, much more for the same amount of effort. So if you were, for example, again, using the photography example, charging, say 1,000 shillings for an hour's worth of work, and now you have this event, which is maybe a wedding or something like that, where for the same hour or 2 hours, you could make maybe 10, 20, even 30,000 shillings, 50,000 shillings for that amount of period. It's the effort versus reward distinction that we're making here. So the small bits of work, those keep your lights on, so don't ever downplay those. Do as many of those as you possibly can. And I struggle sometimes with young entrepreneurs, and they say, I only do the big events, I only do the big gigs, I'm only trying to do that life-changing, the third category, where you do this one breakthrough. Maybe you can get a contract from, let's say, a bank that will pay you millions of shillings over time to do their photography on a contracted basis, and that is what you're chasing, forgetting that these small customers, the bit by bit, this is where your perfection is built, this is where your profile is built, and this is where your brand is built. Your brand is not built by doing things for free. One thing I must stress is it's very important for you to know your value and to know your worth. The minute you leave your house to do any sort of, gainful, productive activity that is supposed to benefit you, especially if you're self-employed, you need to know that the reason why you're leaving your house in the first place is so that you can create some value that you can exchange and bring back to yourself. Okay, so valuing yourself is very important, and that's why knowing which opportunities are there for your brand building, which opportunities are there for your network, that is not for other people to tell you, that is for you to know for yourself. Okay, once you know what your worth is, once you know what your first level of customer, which is the people who will keep your lights on, your second level of customer, the people who will allow you to expend, the same amount of effort but for more reward, and the third level that will give you that life-changing opportunity that will take you to the next level. Once you know all these three categories, then you and you alone determine what your worth is and which situation you are comfortable exchanging your value for. Not someone else telling you that this is actually good for you. You need to know what's good for yourself first. Let me stop there, because this is something that I'm so passionate about this, and I get these calls, Mwenesi, do this, it's good for your exposure. No, listen, I'll charge you a minimal fee for whatever it is that you need me to do for you, but I'm loath to not having my value or my worth being taken seriously. And as soon as you teach someone how to treat you, then you set a precedent, and that becomes the norm. Keep watching, keep sharing, keep subscribing. Remember, all I want you to do is get yours.